Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Books, Gurrs, and Purrs. My name's Leslie, and for the month of July, I focused on Carmen Maria Machado. I only read 2 books by her. I know she has other work, but I only had so much time. So the first book I read is In the Dream House. It's a memoir, and I absolutely love this. I love this so much. I read this and listened to it. I started the book late at night, and I think the audio was only 4 or 5 hours. I did not sleep. I wasn't done till like 2 in the morning, but this book is so riveting. And it's also the way that it was written. This memoir is written in a series of vignettes, and I'm not a huge fan of vignettes, but the author uses that technique so skillfully and effectively in this book. And sometimes the vignettes will only be a page. For instance, Dream House as Chekhov's trigger is 2 pages. And the author writes this way the entire time, and yet somehow there's not a pacing issue. I just zip through this book. So what this book is about is a time in the author's life when they were in an abusive relationship. And what I appreciate is a technique that the author used. The author says, like the title, In the Dream House, because it serves as a couple of different places. For instance, it's where the abuse took place. It's the ideal in the author's mind of a relationship. It's also a way to compartmentalize her experience. So when you're reading the book, it's not like the author says, you know, this happened to me. It's more about this happened to her. It's a way to compartmentalize the experience and remove herself in a way just to get through talking about what happened to her. And also what I love about creating a physical space, a place where all this happened, all the ideals, all of it, is that ultimately the foundation of that is also examined, which is society's stigma of the author being a lesbian, and how being in this abusive relationship, it wasn't just about being abused, but also her hesitance to speak about her experience because of stereotypes about queer relationships. And another technique the author uses in her vignettes, which I thought was really effective, is how the author will use genre to tell a tale of the abuse that they're experiencing. One of the vignettes is called In the Dream House as a Thriller, something like that. I don't think I marked the page, but ultimately, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the Scream horror films. It reminded me of that when I was reading it. And so here is a person that's having this emotional and verbal abuse go on, but you're reading it through the horror or thriller genre in a way, and you understand the panic and the seriousness of the abuse that's going on. And I also think that's really important because the abuse that the author mainly experiences is emotional and psychological, and so those aren't always easy to identify or to be believed, because certain instances could be interpreted by others in so many different ways. And I felt like reading this book must help other people in some way that have been through these things. I'm sure that they probably feel seen, like someone could read this and kind of know like, oh yeah, what I went through was real. Like there's this validation in reading the book, and I thought that was really touching. Something the author does is through writing this is, you know, just because of the content itself, is be really vulnerable. And so on page 24, one of the vignettes is called Dream House as Luck of the Draw. And she writes, how many times had you said, if I just look a little different, I'd be drowning in love. Now you got to drown without needing to change a single cell. Lucky you. So reading that, we also get a clue into the author's insecurities, and also how in society she's taught that because the way that she looks, that she will not be wanted or appealed to, but because the girlfriend that she's with is the societal's ideal, white, blonde, that even though she's being treated badly, this is something that she should accept, because a perception is she's lucky she even has that, which is really terrible. But then that creates like this power dynamic, right? Because we're all growing up in the same world. So if that's also the same belief system that her girlfriend has, then that just seems like a world that's really fueling the fire to this kind of abuse to happen. Because the author should feel like so lucky to have the girlfriend in their lives. And I guess that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the foundation of the house, right? There's all these societal issues going on that make the author think that, oh, this has to be the ideal relationship or home to experience. And so, again, this book blew me away, and I'm just really glad that she wrote this. And so I could see what all the hype is around this author's work, because, I mean, the technique was just so razor sharp, and I just blew right through this. All right, and the second book I read, which is not by the author, I just snuck in some shorter books, is They Call Me Güero, A Border Kids Poems by David Bowles. I'm trying to think. I saw this on the website for my local bookstore, Village Well Coffee and Books. This was not on my list to read this year, but I started reading about the book and it just sounded interesting, so I went ahead and picked it up. As you know, I've said so many times whenever I read poetry that I'm not a huge fan of poetry. It just feels a bit intimidating and just daunting. This is geared towards a younger, probably middle grade, and so that's probably why I also liked it, because it's just easy to digest. So this book touches upon colorism, family, community, living on borderlands, how society treats people and tries to hold them back, specifically through the lens of like colorism. So this poetry collection is told through the eyes of a 12-year-old. He's white, Mexican American, grappling with identity on a borderland, and it focuses on this young boy's coming of age and dealing with also like the dynamics and diversity of language, and explores this young boy delving into his own religious beliefs and his love of reading and going to the library. And so I thought I'd read one of the poems. It's about 2 pages. It's really short, but it really packs a punch. And it says, They call me Güero. In my family, I have the lightest skin. My big sister Teresa is toasty brown, and little Arturo's the color of honey. But I'm pasty white, covered in freckles. Everyone's got a nickname for me. Tío Danny calls me El Pecas, while Grandpa Manuel tusses my copper hair and shouts, "Way to go, Red." Most folks, they call me Güero. In fact, they use that word so much that when I was a little squirt, I thought it was my name. My family loves my paleness. Even Teresa, who says she's jealous. I look like my grandmother. Lots of Spanish and Irish blood. But at school, it's a different story. As if my complexion's on purpose. The haters say I think I'm all that. Call me El Canelo Chafo and laugh. Their taunts make me wish I could box like Saul Alvarez, the real Canelo. My hands ache to curl into fists and pound my problems away. But I swallow my pride, keep calm. When Dad picks me up, he can tell. What's wrong, Güero? Looks like you're ready to punch someone. As he drives, I explain, jaw tight. My dad puts his hand on mine. It's deep brown, like mesquite bark or clay from Mexican soil. I wish my skin were like that, not all pink and freckled, turning lobster red in the border sun to match my rusty hair. Mijo, pale folks catch all the breaks. Here and in Mexico too. Not your fault. Not fair. Just the way it's been for years. Doors will open for you that won't for me. My eyes filled with tears. But I didn't ask anyone to open them for me. Dad squeezes my hand. No, but now you've got to hold them open for all of us. And so by the end of that poem, that last line seemed sweet, and it is, right? You want to be able to help people in your own community that struggle because of colorism, but I also feel like that last line speaks to the weight that's put on this young kid's shoulders, and so many in his community. There's that walking through life and being like having additional pressure, if that makes any sense. But on top of that, I feel like it's because of colorism and racism, colonialism, that actually puts this kid to be in this position, which I actually think just lends to the white saviorism trope, right? Because no one's actually being saved. It's just a cycle. It's a cycle of like racism not being broken and colorism still continuing. That puts him in that position. I hope I make sense when I'm saying that. But I also felt like I appreciated how the author talks about how colorism is not okay, but at the same time, there are family members that are revering him just because of his skin, and also how his skin gets weaponized when he's at school. It's just a complex conversation because I see how him being bullied comes from a place of like other kids being frustrated with being pulled down by society, and then instead of like focusing on the specific ways or the specific people that are hurting them, they just are just directing at somebody completely a different person because their skin is white. So it's just a really complicated dynamic that's going on, and yet the author just did really well expressing it through this young kid's eyes. And yeah, I just thought this is gonna be a really great book that lends itself to conversation for kids of this age. It's probably like from 9 to 12, I think, that this is kind of geared towards. I don't know, something like that. Yeah, ages 9 to 12, it says on the back. So I really enjoyed this. I don't really care if something is meant for like younger kids or adults. I just like reading. And so I definitely think this is worth picking up. Yeah, so I don't want to make this video too long, so I'll just talk about these two books. And so July was a really great reading month. And I just wish I had more time because I started to get a little backed up in the videos. So thank you for watching. I noticed I have some new subscribers, so thank you. I really appreciate it. Please continue to subscribe, like, comment. Let me know if you've read any of these books or if you've read anything like it and you would like to make some suggestions. I'm here to take them. I'm here to take them and I'm here to read them. All right, everyone. So thank you very much, and I'll talk to you later.